Good day everyone, we are the Group 8 and today we are going to present our report on unenforceable contracts under Article 1403 to 1408 on law and obligations and contracts. So first, allow me to present my PowerPoint. So the unenforceable contracts is one that cannot be sued upon or enforced in court unless it is ratified. It has all the essential elements but it produces no effects. It occupies an intermediate ground between void and voidable contracts. So, the book stated that there are three kinds of unenforceable contracts. First, those are not authorized. Those entered into the same of another person by one who has been given no authority or legal representation or who has been acted beyond his powers. This contract cannot be enforced against the person in whose name the contract was entered into unless it is ratified by him. So, for example, O, the owner of a car, S, without any permission to O, sold the car in the name of O to B. B cannot enforce O unless O ratifies it. So next, those that do not comply with the statute of frauds, in the following cases, an agreement hereafter made shall be unenforceable by action, unless the same or some note or memorandum thereof be in writing and subscribed by a party charged or by his agent. Evidence, therefore, of the agreement cannot be received without in the writing or secondary evidence of its contents. Those covered by statute of frauds, which a contract cannot be enforced due to lack of formality, because there are several requirements for a contract to be enforced. One of the examples for statute of fraud is the selling of real property, because for the selling of the real property to be enforced, it must be reduced in writing, or else it will be unenforceable. So dapat niyo tandaan na statute of fraud is applicable only to contracts that is not partially executed or partially performed. Kasi kung already performed na siya and already executed, then it is not applicable to statute of fraud. So next, contracts required to be in writing under the statute of frauds, otherwise they are unenforceable. So first, an agreement that by its terms is not be performed within a year from the making thereof. So, for example, on December 1, D and C orally agreed that D will construct a house for C, and C will start making the payment to D for the percentage of completion. On December 16, neither D or C is obliged or forced to perform their obligations because their agreement was not in writing. Diba? So next, let's proceed. A special promise to answer for the debt, default, or miscarriage of another. So dito naman, for example, si C, nag-loan siya for the amount of 10,000 kay D. And si A, nag-promise siya orally kay D na siya yung magbabayad ng loan ni C if ever si C hindi siya makapagbayad ng utang niya kay D. And when the due time came, D cannot enforce A to make the payment for the debt of C since it was not in writing. Oral promise lang siya and wala. So, it is unenforceable. So next, let's proceed to the third one, an agreement made in consideration of marriage other than mutual promise to marry The agreement made in consideration of marriage may be entered into between the future spouses or between one or both the future spouses and the third person or a third person. So, a mutual promise to marry, although not in writing, may be enforceable for the purpose of obtaining actual damage in case of breach, but not for the specific promise to marry. For example, the groom orally promised his bride to give a diamond ring, although no. It is not in writing, so the bride cannot enforce his groom to perform the contract kasi it was not in writing. So next, an agreement for the sale of goods, chattels, or things in action for the price not less than 500 pesos. Things in action include credit, shares of stocks, and other incorporeal properties. However, when the sale is made by auction, the entry made by auctioneer in his sales book at the time of sale of the amount and the kind of property sold, terms of sales, price, names of purchases, and the person on whose account the sale is made is sufficient memorandum. Hence, the sale is enforceable although not subscribed by the parties sought to be held liable. For example, S orally sold S orally agreed to sell his phone to B for the amount of 3,000, and the delivery of the phone and the payment of the price would be made the following day. Neither S nor B may enforce the sale against one another since it is not in writing. So next, an agreement for the leasing for a longer period than 1 year of real property or of an interest therein. For example, Koy orally sold a 1 square meter lot for 450 pesos to B, an electric corporation for their electric post, and the delivery of the lot and the payment of the price were to be done next week. Neither the party may enforce the contract since it was not in writing. So next, a representation as to the credit of a third person. The representation must have the effect of inducing the party to whom the representation has been made to grant credit to another. The representation should be in writing so that the person making the representation may be held liable if the representation turns out to be false. For example, si Koy gusto niya mangutang sa akin. At ako, wala akong kinalaman sa financial status ni Koy. So, eto naman si Laika, sinabihan ako na oo na, may apartment yan, gano'n. Maganda yung apartment yan, maganda yung income ng apartment niya. Tuloy-tuloy, at saka magaganda din yung mga tawag dito, yung mga pera niya sa bangko, gano'n. So, ako, naniwala ako sa sinabi ni Laika, kaya pinautang ko si Koy. Ngayon, pagka later naman, hindi makabayad si Koy, hindi ko pwede habulin si Laika pa to pay for the damages kasi yung pagsasabi niya sa akin is oral, hindi siya written. So, wala akong habol. So, next slide. Those were both parties are incapable of giving consent to a contract. So, the contract is unenforceable when both parties are minors or one party is a minor and the other is insane. So, ibig sabihin dito is, you cannot enforce the contracting party if if he is a minor or insane or whatsoever. So, pwede siya maging enforced pagka i-ratified ng guardian or yung parent ng minor. So, under 1405 contemplates two scenarios. First, failure to object to the presentation of oral evidence in court litigations, when the opposing counsel or the defense counsel failed to object timely to the presentation of oral evidence pertaining to a contract, and first of all, cross-examine the witness on his testimony, which constitute a waiver on the part of the other parties, where, in effect, it ratifies the unenforceability of the contract and taken away from the ambit of statute of fraud. So, for the next scenario, acceptance of benefits under the contract. So, when the contracting parties, upon knowing the unenforceable contracts, ratifies by admitting it, by admitting the benefits from it. So, for example, Kuy sold my car without my permission. So, dun na nga sa nagkabintahan na nga, di ni-ratify ko na lang, sinabi ko, sige, pwede na yan, sige, ibenta mo na yan. Pero, yung share, yung pera sa akin, di kinuha ko ito yung pera. So, lalabas na siya sa statute of fraud. Hindi na siya pwede ma-apply doon sa statute of fraud kasi nga ni-ratifies ko na as the owner of that car. Under Article 1406, the right of the party to compel execution of public instrument. If the contract is enforceable under the statute of frauds and the public document is necessary for its registration in the registry of deeds, either party may compel the other to execute the said document. So, sa statute of fraud kasi, as what I said earlier, na nagiging applicable lang siya pagka kung wala pang execution and performance na nagaganap. But if meron ng execution na enforced na partially enforced na siya, so nagkakaroon ng right yung other party to compel the contracting party to reduce their contract in writing. Kasi for example, bentahan ng lupa, nakapagbayad ka na sa kanya, and then nung kukunin mo na yung lupa, bigla niya sinabi, ay, hindi ko na ibebenta sa'yo, ganito, ganyan, suddenly change of minds. So, pwede kang pumunta doon sa korte at mag-apela ka sa kanya na i-reduce niya yung kontrata niyo sa writing. Kasi ayun yung i-register mo doon sa registry of deeds. Hindi mo naman pwede i-register yung laway mo doon. So, ayun. And next, ratification when both parties are incapable of giving consent. First, if the parent or guardian of one of the contracting parties ratifies the contract becomes voidable at the instance of the party whose parents or guardian did not ratify the contract. So, dito naman is that yung contract, when both minors entered into a contract, syempre, di ba, hindi pa sila capable kasi sa atin, 18 years old yung majority natin na 18 years old yung legally, yung pwede ka na maka-enter sa contract legally. So, for example, dalawang minors, 17 years old, nagkabentahan sila ng laptop. And then, pwede siyang bawiin kasi walang visa yung kontrata na yan. Kasi minor pa sila, they are not yet capable of entering a contract. So, pero kasi, for example, kami ni Kuy, nagbentahan kami ng laptop, pareho kami minor, 17 years old. So, tapos, sabi ni Kuy, ibibenta niya yung laptop niya sa akin. Tapos ako magbibigay ako sa kanya ng pera. And then yung parent ni Kuy, sabi niya, sige anak, ibenta mo na lang yan, kunin mo na yung pera. Tapos, nagiging doon kasi nung niratify ng parent niya yung contract namin, nagiging voidable siya. Kasi, pagka malaman ng parent ko at hindi sila pumayag, ma-annulled siya. Di ba? Pero, pagka pumayag yung parent ko na bilhin yung laptop niya, so, nagiging enforceable na siya. And dito naman, for the second one, if the parent or guardian of both contracting parties ratify the contract is validated from inception. Ayun yung sinabi ko kanina na pagka yung both parents namin ni Kuy Kuy pumayag dun sa kontrata namin, nagiging enforceable na siya even though we do not have the capable to enter into a contract. Dahil nga sa niratify or validate ng parents namin, yung kontrata namin, nagiging valid na siya, nagiging enforceable na siya. So, third person, Article 1408, third person cannot assail unenforceable contracts. Unenforceable contracts can only be questioned by the contracting parties and their heirs. Bakit? Kasi nga, bawal makaalam yung third person, bawal i-question ng ibang tao yung kontrata namin kasi firstly, useless, unenforceable siya. And pangalawa, there are law na between two people who entered into a contract na bawal mangalam yung ibang tao. Ayun. So, next. We are done. Will you never so high, the law is above you by Thomas Paul Fuller. And that would be all. Thank you. Our group my group is done. And I am open. We are open for any clarifications and questions. Thank you. And yours truly, Irish Hamara, as the leader of Group 9, Unenforceable Contracts.